right, so today we're going to be discussing how to successfully plan and host an event for multifamily investors. So it's a really great topic. I've been in this position. So I'm Melissa Broom, the director of marketing for passiveinvesting.com, and I've been in this position for about 3 years now. And I have hosted everything from virtual summits to 3-day summits to in-person large events to small in-person events to small virtual events. Everything you can think of, I have dabbled in it, if you will. So really excited to talk about this topic. I think events are super important for if you're really building that authority platform and building a name for yourself in the business and building that reputation. So real quick before I dive in, be sure to check out passiveinvesting.com. You can check out our current offerings, what we have going on, and meet the team. So you can read more about me and the rest of our team there. So to jump right in, so I'm going to skip around here. I had virtual or in person as the second bullet, but I want to kind of touch on that first because I think it's a key component as we move forward in our conversation about events. We're coming off of the pandemic. I know it's still sort of lingering, obviously everyone's still concerned about getting sick. So that's not to downplay that, but really excited that in-person events are back and here to stay. Hopefully we don't have to go through another pandemic in our lifetime. But, the question is virtual or in person? And that's really, there is no right or wrong when it comes to that. I think an approach with both could be a great option depending on what you want to do. If you're just starting out and you're trying to, build your email list, build your following, I think virtual events are great. I think what the pandemic did is taught people who wouldn't necessarily know how to, join a Zoom or join we use Whova, which is an event platform, which I'll get into. It really taught everybody how to function online and learn and network online. So virtual events are great. I don't think because the pandemic is over, virtual events have to be over. I think doing a virtual event can be a great low cost option for somebody who wants to, maybe do their first event, their second event. And then, shifting over to in-person events, it's a lot more, there's a lot more work that goes into it, but a lot of times people get a lot more value out of in-person events just because of that connection, that networking connection. So they're both great. They both have their pros and cons. You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this event? If you're really focusing on the networking, the relationship building aspect of it, then you probably want to go more for the in-person. If it's really heavy content, session based, which we did our MFI and summits for, I think we did 6 or 7 of them before we went live in person. And the best feedback we got from those MFI and summits was how much people learned at those events. You really can take all the distractions away, sit at your desk and just watch and learn from our lineup of speakers. So I think an approach with both a virtual and an in-person event is great. But you really have to think about what's your goal here? What are your personal goals in hosting these events? So I'll kind of jump back to, so you want to host an event. So now what? So there's so much that goes into it. But I have just kind of a list of things that I want to share on the questions you should be asking yourself. And, the answer to these questions are going to be unique to you as the operator, as the multifamily investor trying to build this authority platform. So first you want to pick a date. So that's super important. You have to make sure that obviously you don't want to do an event on Mother's Day, right? So because that wouldn't be good. You don't want to do an event on a holiday that you would then, miss people prioritize the holiday, obviously. You also want to look at what other events are happening. It's okay to compete with other multifamily events. We've done it before where we've ran an event at the same time as another event. It's not like you can't do that, but just know that you will be competing with other events on a weekend or on a 2-day, 3-day period. So just knowing what's happening, and you may plan an event for, say, April 13th, and then you may find out 2 weeks later that somebody else is planning an event because they just announced it. So you can't avoid it, but being aware, because there's, there might be opportunity for partnership, there might be opportunity to work together. It's not necessarily a bad thing. So definitely pick your date. That's to start, decide virtual or in person. So as we discussed, you want to ask yourself what your goals are and what you really want to take out of this. You want to pick your topic, your focus, your target audience. So it kind of goes back to the virtual or in person question. What are your goals here? So you want to make sure that you don't just, you want to have a specific message, because that helps with marketing. So what are you really trying to get out of this? What are you giving the people who are spending money to be there? What are you giving them? Is it education? Is it networking? Is it a certain type of education like asset management or acquisitions or capital raising? Or what's the topic? And that also will help determine your target audience to kind of work to do some specific, is your target audience passive investors or is your target audience active investors? Because there's, you really want to be targeting both when it comes to raising capital and being a successful syndicator. So what's your target audience? Hosting events for active investors looks very different than passive investors. How much do you want to sell your tickets for? So is there something that you're selling your attendees on the back end of it? So a lot of times what you'll see with events is, so for our events, for example, at MFI Incon, we're not selling any sort of coaching program or we're not trying to upsell anything else other than the fact that we want you to come learn and network at our event. There's no other ulterior motive, but that's not a bad thing. I don't mean ulterior motive in a bad way, because there are events that are extremely successful that the business plan is to sell the ticket at a very low cost and get as many people in the room as possible. And then, turn around during the event and try to gain, to sell them on something else. So you definitely want to decide. That will help determine your ticket price if you are or are not selling something at the event as well. You don't want to ask somebody to spend $3,000 to be in a room and then try to sell them on another $3,000 program. I think that's not fair. I think, keep the price low if your goal is to upsell them at the event itself. The other question you want to ask is, do you want to limit the number of tickets that you want to sell? So our MFI and intensives, for example, are, the goal is it's a workshop. Those are workshops. They're not, large events. If you come to MFI Incon, you'll likely rub shoulders with, Dan, Danny, and Brandon, our managing partners, but maybe not. And that may not be in interest to everybody at MFI Incon. The MFI and intensive is a chance to sit down with typically one of our partners and really learn how they got to where they are today. We've got 1.3 billion under management. If that's your goal, it would be great to be in a room with somebody who's done it. And that's the goal for MFI and intensive, is we're really just trying to give people the opportunity to be in that room with someone who's done it and been successful, and with other people in the room who are successful. Because a lot of times the attendees who come to that event are also successful syndicators themselves. So the next question is, you want to, your team. So who will help you run these events? So, we're fortunate. I've got myself, Hannah is our event manager, who does a great job running events and planning out all these events for us. But, are you a one-man show? Do you have a partner who, isn't really interested in doing events? It doesn't mean you can't do it. That just means that you're likely going to have to find some help somewhere else. Do you have an assistant? Do you have a spouse? Do you have, you're going to need moderators. You're going to need people to help actually run the event. Even if it's virtual, typically virtually we had 2 to 3 rooms running at the same time, meaning we needed somebody in those rooms kind of teeing up speakers, introducing them, kind of telling them what's going to happen. So you want to make sure that you've got, some really solid people you can rely on to help you with these events. It's not a one-man show type thing. You can, but at least having one other person to lean on, I think is great, because technical difficulties, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong if you're not prepared, and have backup for that. So marketing for events. So you want to create a landing page for ticket sales. You've got to be able to just send people to a single location, tell them about the event, and give them the option to purchase their ticket. So I'll get into some of the softwares and systems that we use for that. But you know, you can outsource that. You can outsource getting a landing page set up if that's not something you know how to do. Like I said, we'll get into the software later on, but making sure that everything is clear and understood, and you know, you're dealing with somebody's credit card information, so making sure you've got the proper systems in place to collect their money, and you know, keep up with the fact that they bought a ticket. So you've got to capture their name somewhere, so when they show up at the event, you know that they're supposed to be there. Making sure all of that makes sense for when they actually purchase their ticket. Marketing for the event. So when should you start marketing? You should start marketing as soon as possible. So, you know, for example, MFINCon in June, we were already selling tickets so in 2022, June 2022, we were already selling tickets for June 2023. So as soon as you know you're planning this event, you want to get the word out. You want to let people know, especially a larger event. If your goal is to have 500 to 1,000 people in a room, you want to start marketing as soon as possible. The MFI intensive, so smaller events, you can probably get away with, you know, a 2-month out type, 1 to 2, 3 months out to try to sell tickets. If you're limiting it to 20 to 30, then of course it may take less time, depending on the size of your list, depending on the size of your following. So you want to make sure that you give yourself ample time to fill those seats. You also want to make sure that for marketing, you get your name out there. So, you know, social media is a powerful tool. There's a lot of other like meetups, Eventbrite. There's a lot of places you can Bigger Pockets. You can post events, and it's a one-time, it takes a couple minutes, set it up one time, and your event sort of lives there until it happens. Those are great places to put your events. And really, there's a lot of groups that actually keep kind of a running list. And, you know, reach out, say, hey, do you have a list of events I can put my event on to try to help get some more ticket sales? So definitely want to find that. Sponsorships. Are you going to sell sponsorships for your event? I think it's a great way to help cover the costs of the event, even virtually. And virtual events do have costs, and we can get into software later, but there's some software costs that go into that. Manpower, if you're going to hire a moderator, you know, to help you, you know, you want to make sure that that's covered. So you want to sell sponsorships, and especially in-person events. And that's going to look different for everybody. Again, you know, what are you selling on the back end? What are your goals? You know, most in-person events, you know, you've got your typical exhibit hall, and, you know, people come with their booths. They're, you know, 8 by or 10 by booth. So you want to, you know, pick your, you know, set up your sponsorships and start selling those. And that really can help cover the cost of the event, because the goal is to build a reputation, but, you know, making sure that, so we never host events for profit. We host events for reputation. Really making sure that the event can pay for itself is the goal that we have. You know, I wouldn't say if you're an active syndicator that you should be trying to make a profit off of these events. A profit is always great, but that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be reputation, and to network, and to, you know, kind of network with accredited investors if that's your goal. You want your schedule. So scheduling is a huge part of it. And, you know, a lot of this is going to be trial and error. You know, we learned a lot from MFINCon, and, you know, leaving time for networking breaks, and time for happy hours, and time for, are you going to do VIP? We have a VIP option at our MFINCon event. So VIP options, what does VIP get from that VIP ticket? And ours was an extra dinner event, an evening event on Friday night. So, but schedule. So making sure that your speakers get ample amount of time. So is that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour and a half? What does your schedule look like? I think that's super important to nail down before you start selling tickets, is kind of understand, you know, how much time do you need? 3 days to accomplish your goals. So yeah, let me jump into, and by the way, if you guys have any questions as I'm going, you can put those in the chat box or the Q&A box. I've got both open. So be sure to drop your questions in the chat box or Q&A box, and I will make sure I get to those. All right, so softwares and systems. So I will say there are a lot of event platforms out there. I would be lying if I said one was better than the other. I think, there's going to be good and bad to all event softwares, and you'll set up a demo with a group and they will tell you the best of their software. But I will guarantee you that each software that I've found has good and bad. There isn't really one that checks every box. You just have to figure out what works best for you and what you're looking for. So we use a software called Huva, and I will just type this because it's can be a little bit, yeah. So Huva is what we use for our events. So they do virtual and in person. So when we were hosting our virtual MFI and summits, we used Huva. Really great for really, they've checked almost every box for us. They obviously, there are things that they don't have that, but we've suggested that and they've actually implemented those things. So Huva's been great for us. But there are a couple others that, Cvent, I think, is another one. I think, but yeah, you definitely need a event platform to run these events. I think you would be doing your attendees and yourself a disservice to not have some sort of platform supporting you. It's great for scheduling, making sure your attendees know where and when to be and what's happening, and you can send announcements, and there's all types of great aspects to having an event platform. And then definitely needed for virtual events, because when we first started out with the MFI and Summit, we did just host it through Zoom, and it works, but it's a lot of work on the back end, and these softwares kind of take out that work and they make it much more seamless. ClickFunnels. So we use ClickFunnels to set up our landing page. So actually these pages are all created in ClickFunnels. So you can use a WordPress site. You don't necessarily have to use like a landing page site, but ClickFunnels is actually really easy to use and easy to learn. It's sort of plug and play. You just you drag text, you drag the different elements into the framework that's already set up for you. So I really like ClickFunnels. There's not, like, for example, passiveinvesting.com site is a WordPress site, if you're familiar with the different types of sites that you can have. But for events, because it's kind of fluid, it's changing a lot. You want to update speakers, you want to update information. I definitely recommend something like ClickFunnels. I honestly don't know of another service like that. So I know ActiveCampaign has a landing page service that I use, but not for events. So check out ClickFunnels, and I'll also put ClickFunnels in the chat box. Yeah, Wix is another one, Squarespace. There's some other, website landing page builders you can use, but ClickFunnels allows you to sell, like, you can completely sell your tickets and everything inside ClickFunnels. So it really makes it seamless using that. And you can when it comes to selling tickets, you can sell tickets through Huva or whatever event platform you have as well. But ClickFunnels is another way that you can do that. So you want to make sure that you have like a MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, Constant Contact, and email software for marketing purposes. You want to make sure that you can always, send an email to attendees with the click of a button. We use MailChimp and ActiveCampaign, just depending on which side of the business we're looking at. But for our events, we use MailChimp, and it sort of just is a backup to collect names and emails of the event. So in the event that something did go haywire with Huva, we have that backup list. And that could be done with an Excel spreadsheet, I guess, but it's just, we've always done it. We've always used MailChimp, and it has been helpful to kind of keep everything in that centralized place. I mentioned social media earlier. There's social media is a powerful tool. Make sure you don't forget about it. We recently, in another aspect of our business, we recently sponsored an event for one of our car washes, actually. And I was waiting for the event to actually create like a Facebook page. I was like, this is a huge part of it. Like, why is there no Facebook, and eventually they did get around to it, but make sure that, you guys you have a social media presence, whether it be, your brand's social media presence that you run the event through, you can run promotions through the event through, or just set up a separate page on LinkedIn, on Facebook for your event. Another aspect to events is vendors. So that kind of goes into softwares and systems, but especially if you're doing in-person events, you're gonna need some really reliable vendors you can count on. So that could be anything from decorators, sign companies. What's the other one? The AV companies. That's what I was thinking of. AV, so audiovisual, stages, photographers, videographers, and a lot of that, referrals are great for stuff like that. So if you find a really good AV company, ask them who they recommend for signage. In the event space, a lot of these companies sort of work together throughout the year, so they know kind of the good, the bad, the ugly. So definitely, and get multiple quotes. So for our AV is a huge expense when it comes to in-person events. So AV, if you're not familiar, is anything from your camera crews to your stage setup to your backdrop to your big screens, everything that's AV. So we get at least 3 quotes for AV because it can vary so much. So make sure you're getting multiple quotes, you're talking to multiple people, and really do your due diligence on these companies before you sign with them. And, we've made mistakes. We've gone with what I would say the wrong company in the past, but we learn from it. And, for next year, we know who we want to have back and who we won't have back for MFI and Con. All right. So that's all I have as far as content goes. If you guys have any questions, I know I went kind of fast. If you guys have any questions about anything I talked about, please drop that in the chat or the Q&A box. Ron has a question. Are presenters and panelists generally paid for their appearance? Do event organizers pay their hotel airfare to get these presenters to the event? So the answer is no, but it can depend. So it depends on, so our celebrity guests, we do pay them to be there. Obviously they have fees involved, and we pay, it depends on the speaker. Sometimes they work their travel fees into their, I guess, speaking fee. Or they'll say, here's my speaking fee plus we want, we need 3 hotel rooms and ground transportation from the airport to the event. So that's another way that they've done it. As far as speakers, just your having multifamily experts come. I have not heard of or seen anybody be paid for that. That doesn't mean that couldn't help you get some better speakers. It would be a unique strategy to try. But a lot of times speakers like Dan Handford, who's one of our managing partners, or some of the other big names I can pull up on like our MFI and Con site, Michael Blanc, Mark Kenny, Whitney Sewell, typically those are not paid to be there. They're coming to speak because we've invited them. And no, so that kind of with that, we don't pay for hotel airfare for like these multifamily speakers. Does anybody have any other questions before we wrap up? So like I said, if you haven't already, go check out MFI and Con. It's just mfiandcon.com. Get your ticket for next year. And then also the MFI and Intensive coming up on November 14th and 15th for asset management and acquisitions. Next week on the Multifamily Investor Nation webinar series, let's see if this updates. I don't think so. Doesn't look like it's going to update. Yeah, so I don't think I have next week's topic here, but we will send that out. We'll get that page fixed and updated. Let me try here. There we go. All right, it's working now. How to create powerful lead magnets that educate and convert with Whitney Elkins Hutton. So she's our director of investor education, and she's really great to hear speak on, she's an expert in a lot of different aspects of the business. So definitely, go ahead and register for next week's event, Tuesday at 11 a.m. on November 8th. And if there are no additional questions, then we can go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate everyone joining today. I hope you guys learned something or took something away from this. So be sure to register for next week and, for our future webinars to learn some more. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and we will see you next week.